EISOPTROPHOBIA, fear of mirrors. Imagine being afraid of something most people use daily without a second thought. EISOPTROPHOBIA goes far deeper than simple vanity or self-consciousness. This fear stems from the profound human experience of self-recognition and our relationship with our own identity. When someone with EISOPTROPHOBIA faces a mirror, they're not just seeing a reflection, they're confronting existential questions about reality and self. Some sufferers report feeling like they're looking at a stranger, while others fear the mirror might show something supernatural or threatening. This connects to ancient human beliefs about mirrors as portals to other worlds. The condition often intertwines with deeper psychological aspects of self-image and identity. For some, it represents a disconnect between their internal self-image and their external appearance. In severe cases, people might cover all reflective surfaces in their homes, affecting their daily routines like grooming or applying makeup, fundamentally changing how they navigate their world. TRYPOPHOBIA, fear of clustered holes. Trypophobia might seem unusual, but it taps into some of our most primitive survival instincts. When someone with this phobia sees patterns of small holes or bumps like in honeycomb, coral, or certain plants, their brain triggers an intense disgust response that goes beyond rational thought. Scientists believe this fear might be an evolutionary response to dangerous patterns in nature. Many poisonous animals and plants display similar clustered patterns, suggesting our ancestors who felt uneasy around such patterns were more likely to survive. This makes trypophobia less a modern quirk and more an ancient survival mechanism. The reaction can be incredibly intense, causing not just fear but physical symptoms like nausea, skin crawling, and panic attacks. What makes this phobia particularly challenging in modern life is how common these patterns are in everyday objects, from shower heads to bubble wrap, forcing sufferers to navigate their environment carefully.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
KOUMPOUNOPHOBIA, fear of buttons. This peculiar fear of buttons reveals how seemingly simple objects can carry deep psychological weight. For people with KOUMPOUNOPHOBIA, buttons aren't just clothing fasteners, they're sources of intense anxiety that can trigger powerful physical and emotional responses. The fear often stems from childhood experiences or sensory processing issues. Some sufferers are particularly disturbed by the texture, while others fear the button might come loose and become a choking hazard. This reveals how our brains can transform ordinary objects into perceived threats based on past experiences or intrinsic sensitivities. In today's world, this phobia can significantly impact daily life, affecting clothing choices, social interactions, and even career opportunities. Many sufferers opt for zippered or pullover clothing, demonstrating how deeply this fear can influence practical life decisions. Chromophobia, fear of colors. Chromophobia represents one of the most fascinating intersections between perception and emotion. This isn't simply a dislike of certain colors, it's a profound fear response to specific colors, or, in some cases, all bright colors, revealing how deeply our psychological state is connected to visual perception. For someone with chromophobia, colors aren't just visual experiences but triggers for intense emotional and physical reactions. Some might fear specific colors due to traumatic associations, while others might feel overwhelmed by the intensity of certain hues. This shows how our brain's interpretation of visual stimuli can become entangled with our emotional responses. The impact on daily life can be severe, as color is fundamental to human experience. Sufferers might need to carefully control their environment, affecting everything from their choice of clothing to their living space, demonstrating the extensive adaptations required to manage this condition. Omphalophobic fear of belly buttons. Omphalophobia might seem humorous to some, but it reveals deep-seated anxieties about body awareness and our connection to birth. The belly button serves as a permanent reminder of our biological origins and separation from our mothers, making this fear deeply rooted in existential concerns. Some sufferers experience intense discomfort thinking about the physical aspect of the navel, while others are troubled by its symbolic significance as a connection to birth and early dependency. This demonstrates how physical features can become powerful symbols that trigger psychological distress. The impact can extend to personal hygiene, intimate relationships, and even medical care. Some people with this phobia avoid touching or looking at their own belly button, showing how a seemingly simple fear can significantly affect self-care and body awareness. Pogonophobia, fear of beards. Pogonophobia illustrates how social and cultural symbols can become sources of intense fear. This isn't just about aesthetic preference, it's a genuine fear response to facial hair that can trigger panic attacks and severe anxiety. The fear often connects to deeper issues involving gender perception, cultural associations, or past traumatic experiences. Some sufferers associate beards with threatening figures from their past, while others might be responding to cultural or social conditioning about what beards represent. In our current era, where beards are increasingly common, this phobia can significantly impact social interactions, professional relationships, and even romantic possibilities. It demonstrates how personal fears can clash with changing social norms and fashion trends. Xanthophobia, fear of yellow. Unlike a simple dislike of a color, xanthophobia represents a complex psychological response to the color yellow that can trigger intense panic and anxiety. This specific color phobia offers fascinating insights into how our brains process visual information and attach emotional significance to particular wavelengths of light. The fear often manifests in both natural and artificial encounters, with yellow from sunflowers and daffodils to painted walls and clothing. What makes this phobia particularly intriguing is that yellow is typically associated with positivity and happiness in most cultures, yet for sufferers, it triggers the opposite response. This contradiction highlights how personal psychological experiences can override cultural symbolism. Some theories suggest this fear might relate to evolutionary responses to yellow as a warning color in nature, as many poisonous creatures use yellow as a warning signal. Others connect it to traumatic experiences or deep-seated psychological associations formed in childhood. The impact on daily life can be profound, as yellow is one of the most common colors in both natural and urban environments. Living with xanthophobia requires careful navigation of environments and often leads to elaborate coping mechanisms. Sufferers might avoid certain foods, change their driving routes to avoid yellow traffic lights, or carefully screen their media consumption. This demonstrates how a specific color phobia can reshape one's entire way of interacting with the world. Automatonophobia, fear of human-like figures. This profound fear of human-like figures taps into a fascinating psychological phenomenon known as the uncanny valley, where objects that appear almost, but not quite human, trigger deep-seated discomfort. For those with automatonophobia, this discomfort escalates into genuine terror. The condition often extends beyond mannequins to include wax figures, dolls, robots, and any artificial representation of human form. This fear might be rooted in our evolutionary need to quickly identify real humans from potential threats or imposters. The brain's confusion when encountering something that looks human but isn't can trigger primitive survival responses. Modern technology has made this phobia increasingly challenging to manage as humanoid robots and realistic animations become more common. Sufferers might experience panic attacks when encountering store displays, watching certain movies, or visiting museums. The rise of artificial intelligence and increasingly realistic androids presents new challenges for people with this condition. The psychological impact often extends into deeper existential questions about what makes us human and the nature of consciousness itself. Many sufferers report feeling unsettled by the idea of human replication or simulation, revealing how this phobia connects to fundamental questions about identity and authenticity in the modern world. Chirophobia, fear of hands. Chirophobia presents a particularly challenging phobia as hands are fundamental to human interaction and daily function. This fear can range from discomfort with one's own hands to terror at seeing or being touched by others' hands, revealing complex layers of psychological and social implications. The impact on daily life is profound, affecting everything from basic tasks to social interactions. Simple activities like shaking hands, receiving objects from others, or even watching people gesture while talking can trigger intense anxiety. This shows how a specific body part phobia can fundamentally alter one's ability to participate in normal social conventions. Some sufferers develop this fear after traumatic experiences involving hands, while others may develop it due to germophobia or fear of contamination. The condition often leads to elaborate avoidance behaviors and can significantly impact professional and personal relationships. In severe cases, people might even struggle with their own self-care activities. The treatment often involves exploring deeper psychological associations with hands, their role in both nurture and harm, their importance in human connection, and their symbolism in various cultures. This makes chirophobia a window into how our brains process and assign meaning to different body parts and their roles in human interaction. EUPHOBIA, fear of good news. Perhaps one of the most paradoxical phobias, EUPHOBIA reveals complex psychological mechanisms where positive events trigger anxiety rather than joy. This fear of good news often stems from a deep-seated belief that positive events must be balanced by negative ones, or that good news is simply the precursor to disappointment. The condition frequently develops in people who have experienced patterns of good news followed by devastating events, creating a psychological association between positive news and impending disaster. This can lead to a constant state of anticipatory anxiety, where any good news becomes a source of dread rather than celebration. Modern social media and instant communication have made this condition particularly challenging to manage, as good news can come at any time through multiple channels. Sufferers might avoid social gatherings where good news might be announced, or actively try to dampen positive expectations in their lives. The treatment often involves addressing underlying beliefs about destiny, luck, and control, while working to break the psychological association between good news and negative outcomes. This phobia offers insights into how our expectations and past experiences can fundamentally alter our relationship with positive events. Ablutophobia, fear of washing. Ablutophobia presents a serious challenge to basic hygiene and health, extending beyond simple reluctance to wash. This intense fear of washing or cleaning oneself can stem from various sources, including traumatic water-related experiences, sensory processing issues, or deeper psychological concerns about vulnerability. The condition often manifests in early childhood but can develop at any age. Sufferers might experience panic attacks at the thought of bathing, leading to elaborate avoidance behaviors. The fear can extend to specific aspects of washing, such as the sensation of water, the feeling of being exposed, or the act of immersion itself. Modern bathroom designs, with their emphasis on spa-like experiences, can actually increase anxiety for some sufferers, who might find these spaces overwhelming. The condition can significantly impact social relationships, professional opportunities, and overall health, making it particularly important to address through professional intervention. The social implications can be severe, as personal hygiene is a fundamental aspect of social interaction. Treatment often involves a combination of exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral techniques, and addressing any underlying trauma or anxiety disorders. This phobia reveals how essential daily activities can become sources of intense fear. Vestiphobia, fear of clothing. Vestiphobia represents a complex intersection of sensory processing, body awareness, and social anxiety. This isn't simply a preference for loose clothing or specific fabrics. It's an intense fear response to wearing clothes that can trigger severe panic attacks and psychological distress. The condition often manifests in different ways. Some sufferers fear specific types of clothing, while others experience anxiety about any form of clothing touching their skin. This reveals how our relationship with clothing goes beyond mere functionality or fashion, touching on deeper issues of comfort, identity, and social conformity. Modern fashion's emphasis on varying textures and styles can make this condition particularly challenging. Sufferers might struggle with professional environments requiring specific dress codes, social events, or even basic public appearances. Some develop elaborate coping mechanisms, like wearing only certain materials or specific loose-fitting items. The treatment often involves exploring the root causes, which can range from traumatic experiences to sensory processing disorders. This phobia provides interesting insights into how society's expectations of clothing and appearance can conflict with individual psychological needs. In severe cases, people might become completely housebound, highlighting the critical role clothing plays in social participation. Chronomentrophobia, fear of clocks. Chronomentrophobia delves deep into humanity's complex relationship with time itself. This fear of clocks and timepieces often represents a deeper anxiety about the passage of time, mortality, or loss of control over one's life. It's particularly relevant in our modern society's rigid scheduling and time consciousness, but sufferers might experience intense anxiety when seeing or hearing clocks, especially ticking sounds or digital displays. The condition can manifest as panic attacks, sweating, rapid heartbeat, and overwhelming dread. Some people develop this fear after traumatic experiences that involve timing or waiting, while others connect it to deeper existential concerns. In our digital age, this phobia has evolved to include fear of time displays on phones, computers, and other devices. This makes avoidance particularly challenging, as time displays are virtually omnipresent in modern life. Some sufferers develop elaborate systems to track time without using conventional clocks, demonstrating human adaptability even in challenging psychological conditions. The impact extends beyond practical timekeeping into relationships and professional life. Treatment often involves addressing underlying anxieties about time, mortality, and control, while gradually desensitizing to various timepieces. This phobia offers fascinating insights into how humans psychologically process the concept of time and its measurement. Linonophobia, fear of string or thread. Linonophobia might seem unusual, but it reveals fascinating aspects of how our brains can attach significant threat responses to seemingly harmless objects. This fear of string or thread often connects to deeper anxieties about entanglement, loss of control, or past traumatic experiences involving similar materials. The condition can manifest in various ways, from mild anxiety when seeing loose threads to severe panic attacks when encountering any form of string, rope, or cord. Some sufferers specifically fear the possibility of entanglement or strangulation, while others experience a more general sense of unease around these materials. This shows how specific object phobias often connect to broader fears about safety and control. Modern life presents numerous challenges for people with linonophobia, as string and thread-like materials are present in clothing, household items, and many everyday objects. Sufferers might need to modify their clothing choices, avoid certain activities, or develop specific strategies for handling necessary encounters with these materials. The treatment typically involves a combination of exposure therapy and cognitive behavioral techniques, often uncovering deeper psychological patterns in the process. This phobia demonstrates how the human mind can transform ordinary objects into sources of fear, and how these fears can significantly impact daily life despite their seemingly specific nature.